But we're grateful to have technology, but it doesn't replace
That's right.
being here together.
That's right.
You know, and so, but we're excited about the ability just to be back in here in a limited capacity and hopefully be back full blown soon. But I want to give you just a couple of things. I'm not going to take a lot of time here, and I'm going to ask Preacher to come here in a moment. We're going to take some time this morning and honor Brother Rusty, honor his memory, and so I hope that you'll bear with us there and just as we honor him this morning. And so you can see some different things in there. A missionary of the month for May and June. The Long family, be praying for them. And then you can see some birthdays. It's our lady getting ready to have a birthday. Is that tomorrow? Yeah, see, I knew my days. See, they're not all run together. And so she's going to be having a birthday tomorrow. And then Jason Bennell Sr. on the 9th. No anniversaries. Now y'all got married in May? Oh, wait. No, we're doing this a little bit by little bit, I know. So, so you be much in prayer for these missionaries. And then also I'm going to read this here in the bulletin. Expressions of sympathy, Rusty Rohr, January 25th, 1956 to April 26, 2020. Brother Rusty will be greatly missed by our church family. He was truly one of a kind. He loved the Lord Jesus with all his heart and loved to come to church better than anything else. Please be in prayer for Miss Carol and the family. And I found it interesting. Miss Lita always sends me a copy of the bulletin via email, so I'll have it. And then I always get a physical copy. But I found it interesting because she sent me this and I looked at it. And she stole my message. I didn't know she's a preacher. And, no, she put Joshua 24:15. That's going to be one of the verses we'll look at this morning. But the latter half of that verse says, "But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." And what a lesson there. And then, of course, we still have lots of prayer requests on the back of that bulletin. And then also some of the events that we've had to cancel or postpone, and then some of the ones that are upcoming. The dates and things are there, so be mindful of that. Again, where should you put this bulletin? A place you're always going to look.
Bible.
Well, yeah, that's y'all got to be all spiritual. I was just thinking refrigerator. Everybody got it. You know. But yeah, your Bible's a good place to get. Thank you, Brother Phil, making me feel a little more spiritual this morning. But yeah, your Bible, if you read it every day, yeah, put it in there. And then also you can even put it on your refrigerator, and then that way you know what's going on. I think everybody in here eats, so anyway, all right. We're going to have a church do one. But we're going to go to the Lord in word of prayer this morning. Then I'm going to ask Preacher Eddie to come, and he has some words he'd like to say as far as Brother Rusty is concerned. So let's go to the Lord in word of prayer, and let's just thank Him for this beautiful day, to be here together, to be able to have technology for those that are still outside, and for those that are watching via Facebook. It's a blessing to have that. And so let's just thank God for what we have today and what He's done. Father, we thank you so much, Lord, for everything you've done. We're so grateful, Father, for who you are. Lord, for allowing us to get back together. God, I pray that you would allow us to be back together in full swing soon, Lord. Lord, let us be able to worship you in spirit and in truth as we so desire. God, I pray that everything that's said and done today will bring honor and glory to your name. That, Father, most of all, Lord, you would work on our hearts today. Lord, you to remind us you're still God. And you're still on the throne. You're still in control. Help us to rest in that. God, I pray you'll continue to bless Miss Carol and the family. God, continue to bring them peace such as only you can bring. In Jesus' precious name we do pray. Amen.
Phil, I don't know whether I'm spiritual or not. Even spiritual as Brother Tommy is, because the first thing I thought about was refrigerator.
Amen. You're a Baptist preacher too.
So that shows what Baptist preachers do. They eat a lot. I can tell I do. So good to see you here this morning, and I'm just going to have a few words, and I'm probably stealing some more of Brother Tommy's message. Miss Linda and Rusty, and Mark are sick this morning, and so we just pass that along to you and wish them well. And then Rusty had a lot of family, and Miss Carol, we love you and pray for you. see Jim here this morning. And Brother Tom said, Rusty sure loved church. I believe it was last year that he and Carol had a goal set to visit and hear 100 different preachers, whether they were here. Was that last year?
It was the year before last, 50 different preachers, and we did 52.
If there was a revival somewhere,
We went,
it'd be there, but he'd be looking at hunting it down. But Rusty and Carol sure love the Lord, and pray for Carol. I'm sure Tommy takes out all this, but we need to pray for one another. We all miss Rusty, and he sat there about that fourth pew, and I miss him already. He was a very vocal fellow, and he was spiritual in his praise. And I'm going to look at Psalm 34. I've got about 3 minutes. I told Brother Tommy it'd be about 5 minutes, and so 2 of those already going on to be rambling. And Rusty would, I'm sure, love this chapter in Psalm 34, and it reminds me of him, and it reveals Rusty's conduct. It says, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. If anything spiritual was going on, Rusty, he was there to say amen or hallelujah or whatever. But he was praising the Lord always, no matter what church he went to. If he was there, there'd be some noise of praise. And so that's becoming in the house of God.
Amen. Yes.
In verse 2 it says, my soul shall make her boast in the Lord. And that was becoming of Rusty. His soul will make his praise, surely make praise unto the Lord. The humble shall hear thereof and be glad. Most of us do miss him this morning because we're the church of humility and the church of Jesus, and if we could hear him praise the Lord, it makes us glad. Then verse 3 says, oh, magnify the Lord with me,
Yes, sir.
and let us exalt his name together.
Amen.
And it won't hurt you, and it won't hurt me
Yes.
to magnify the Lord.
Amen.
I bless his name this morning. God saved me 61, 2 years ago, and it's so wonderful,
Yes.
wonderful, wonderful to
Yes.
know the Lord.
Yes.
To know that you're saved and know that you're going to heaven.
Yes.
And I appreciated Rusty.
Yes.
So magnify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. I sought the Lord, and he heard me and delivered me from all my fears.
Amen.
We're living in a very fearful time now.
Yes.
Even Christians have every right to be fearful. But then Jesus will surely calm your soul.
Mhm.
I've had to pray for that calmness when this thing first broke loose. I really had to pray for calmness. I'm ready to go to heaven, I'm saved, but it don't keep me from having fear of danger. And we trust the Lord and wait on him. And I thank God for comforting messages from Brother Tommy
Yes.
on Sunday. We love Brother Tommy.
Amen.
And I got about 2 more verses. I sought the Lord, and he heard me and delivered me from all my fears.
Yes.
They looked unto him and were lightened. and their faces were not ashamed. This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him. If you get fearful, you cry unto the Lord.
Yes, sir.
He'll surely give you comfort.
Yes.
The Holy Ghost
Yes.
is our comforter. The angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him and delivereth them. And then, oh, taste and see that the Lord is good.
Yes.
How wonderful, how good the Lord is.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
taste. Just look to him. Listen to his word. And look at the scriptures.
Yes.
Brother Tommy, I'd like to say one other thing. Troy and Caleb, I guess cousin, uncle, or whatever, Brother Mike Leonard's brother, they've had so much heartache in their family. But he passed away, and their funeral is tomorrow. And you pray for that family. A lot of sisters and brothers, and try to remember them in prayer. Come.
I'm gonna ask y'all to go ahead and come. Some of Brother Rusty's family is gonna come and sing. They've got a poem or two they like to read, and so as they come, again, be much in prayer for the family, and be praying for them this morning as they come.
She's gonna read a poem.
Okay, I've got a point called Broken Chain. We little knew that morning that God was going to call your name in life. We loved you dearly, and then we did the same. It broke our hearts to lose you. You did not go alone. For a part of us went with you the day God called you home. You left us peaceful memories. Your love is still our God. And though we cannot see you, you're always on our side. Our family chain is broken, and nothing seems the same. But as God calls sees one by one, the chain will link again. We love you, and you will truly be missed.
I'm gonna read my next. I have two little short ones. The first one, it's more like just a little short letter to me, and then the second one is like a poem. The first one goes, Papa, you gave me memories to think about even when I'm sad. You are my Papa, just like a dad, but way better. As a child, my favorite memory of us that I will always remember is on the holidays when we would all get together and just laugh and tell stories and just make memories with you. You were always so full of love and smiles. You were the best Papa I know. You're watching over us, and you will forever remain in our hearts. I love you, Papa. From always your granddaughter, Brooke. And then this one's a poem. It's a poem for Grandpa. It says, Grandpa, you were just a boy so many years ago. You had your loves and your dreams. You watched us all come and go. You watched us all make the same mistakes that you had made before. But that just made you hold us tight and love us all the more. We haven't always thought about the things that you've seen. For all of us, you've just been Grandpa with no thought of who you've been. But we will all remember now and love your life from start to end. And we're just glad we knew you as Grandpa and as a friend.
this is a famous God that fathers just like you. I just want to let you know, you mean the world to me. Only one heart as dear as yours would give us unselfishly. The many things you've done, all the times that you were there, help me know deep down inside how much you really care. Even though I might not say, I appreciate all you do. Richly blessed is how I feel having a father just like you. We love you.
You all done reading that?
glad my victory is not in what the government's doing.
That's right. Yes.
Glad it's not in anything else but Jesus.
Yes, brother.
That's
I tell you, if we didn't have Him, we'd be hopeless. We wouldn't know what victory was.
That's right.
I want you to take your Bibles this morning. Turn to Joshua chapter 24. Read a few verses here. Joshua chapter number 24. We'll begin reading at verse number 15. The Bible says in Joshua 24:15, "And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." The people answered and said, "God forbid that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods. For the Lord our God, He it is that brought us up, and our fathers out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, and which did those great signs in our sights, and preserved us in all the way wherein we went, and among all the people through whom we passed. And the Lord drave out from before us all the people, even the Amorites which dwelt in the land. Therefore will we also serve the Lord, for He is our God."
Amen.
So often we look at this passage and we seem to key in on verse 15. We seem to key in on the choose you this day. That's a famous verse you hear preachers preach about all the time. But there's so much more than just choosing who you're going to serve. Brother Vic and I were talking about it this morning. When it comes down to it, even though I'm saved, I still have to make a daily choice to serve Jesus. I have to make a conscious effort to do something for the cause of Christ. And can I be honest with you? I don't always do that. And if you're honest with me, neither do you. We don't always put Him as first priority. Hey, especially on a Monday morning, Brother Phil, when everything's going south. All of a sudden, Jesus, He was priority Sunday, but Monday rolls around, He's no longer priority because all this is happening, this is going on, that's happening. Listen, we've got to learn, and that's why Joshua was telling him here. He's not saying choose today. That's not what he says. What's it say there in that verse? It doesn't say choose today who you're going to serve. No, it says choose you this day. What's he saying? What he's trying to get across here is you've got to make a decision right now at this moment in time. Are you going to keep going after idols, keep going after what the world has to offer, or are you going to serve the God of heaven? You can't serve both. You can't serve God on Sunday and then go try to serve the world on Monday. It don't work.
That's right.
And so when we look at this passage, I want to see some things from these verses that I think will be a help to us. And I guess if this thing had a title, it would be "The Choice is Yours." Well, let's go, Lord, a word of prayer and ask Him to be with us this morning. Father, we ask You, Lord, that You would hide me behind Your cross. Lord, that everything that's said would be a glory to Your name. Lord, help us to recognize how important it is to have that walk, that relationship. Lord, help us to make the right choices concerning our walk with You and serving You. Use us to bring glory and honor to Your name. For in Jesus' precious name we do pray. Amen. As we look here in these verses, I want us to see three things this morning. Three things this morning when we talk about choices, and the choice is yours. Some things that we must not do, and one thing that we must do if we're going to be what we ought to be as Christians, as a child of God. Number one, we must not forsake Him. We must not forsake Him. Verse number 16, it says, "And the people answered and said, God forbid that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods." Now, when you look here in that verse, in verse 16, you'll see that the word Lord is in all caps. So why is that? Because to the Hebrew people, that is the highest name for God. When you see the word Lord in all caps, that is standing for Jehovah. That is standing for, the Hebrew people will not even say Jehovah. They will say Yah, or they'll not utter His name. Why? Because to them, that's the holiest name that you can have for God, to say Jehovah. And so here, they say, God forbid that we should forsake Jehovah to serve other gods. Here's what they're saying. By saying that, they're signifying that He's the God of gods. There's nobody else. He's the only one. He's the King of kings, the Lord of lords. There's nobody else to worship. The problem is here they are in verse 16 saying this, but if you back up a few chapters, they're living in sin. They're sitting here in verse 16, sitting here claiming that, oh no, He's the God. You know, He's the one we're going to serve. We're not going to forsake Him to go after other gods. Well, you have been. What's changed? And if we're honest in our Christian walk, there's a lot of times we allow so much to get in front. There's so much that gets in front, especially in days like this when things are just crazy. I mean, stores is closed and people's lives have been just kind of upended, and where nobody really knows what's happening next, and we allow the frustration and the craziness and the chaos to get between us and a real relationship with God. And if we're not careful, we'll get to the point where we forsake Him. You remember when Jesus was hanging on the cross? And here's what He says as He's hanging there. He said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? You see, the idea of forsake is not, I'm just not going to acknowledge you. The idea of forsake is to act as if I never knew you. It's to turn my back on somebody that I said I once loved and act as if you don't exist. I don't know you. I never knew you. And it's that thing. That's why God the Father had to turn His back on Christ. Not because He hated His Son, but because He couldn't look at sin. Right. Jesus took on Himself the sin of the whole world. And He couldn't look on that. And so God the Father had to forsake His own Son. It was as if He was saying, I never knew you. You're not mine. You don't love. He turned His back to His own Son. And yet there's so often times where we get so far away from God. We get so caught up in turmoil and circumstances and what's going on in our life and in our world that we completely forsake God. Amen. You see, storms and trials, we've talked about this before, will either drive you to God or you'll run away from Him. That's your response. You can either run to Him or you can run away. And unfortunately, a lot of times our flesh convinces us to run away. You say, how do you run away? When we try to convince ourselves we know better than God.
Yeah.
Oh, I would never do that, preacher. We do it every day. Yes, do it every day. We'll make decisions and we don't even think to talk to God about it. We don't even think to say, well, that's not such a big deal. It's a big deal to God. You know God wants to hear from you. And there's nothing you can talk to God about that He looks at as insignificant. He doesn't look at something you pray and go, what are you praying for that for? No, He wants to hear from you. And even if you think that somebody else would say, why would you pray for that? Man, they're praying for their cat that's sick. God cares. God cares about your cat. Sure does, because He cares about you. He cares about my dog. Sure does, because He cares about you. Listen, you got to understand something here. If we're not careful, we as people put ourselves in the position of God. And when you put yourself in the position of God, you can reckon one thing. It'll destroy you. Because when you start to try to play God, as some of the governors in some of these states have done, I mentioned this the other week, one that made the statement that God didn't do this. Talking about how the virus had, I guess, been contained and controlled. He said, God didn't do this. We did this. I was really shocked that right then and there he just burst into flames. Why? Because he has no idea what he's talking about. Why? Because he's unsaved. He says, well, in his mind there probably is no God. For I'm going to tell you something. Is appointed unto man once to die, and after this the judgment. Right. There'll be a day when he stands before God, and you know what? I truly believe, Brother Vic, that it's going to come across, and God's going to say, hey, you remember when you said God didn't do this? I'm Him, and I didn't. Friend, we've got to understand here, they were so quick to say, oh, God forbid that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods. Yet they had done it. And guess what? After this point, they're going to do it again. You say, what is wrong with you people? God's done all this stuff for you. What's happened? Well, it goes along 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 8 and 9. The writer says, we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Verse 9, persecuted, what? But not forsaken. God hasn't forsaken us. Now, listen, again, in this day and in this hour and the chaos of life right now, it'd be real easy for us to say, God just don't care. God don't care about churches. He don't care about Christians. He's not concerned with us. Because, He wouldn't be letting all this happen. I truly, truly believe with all my heart, I've talked to other preachers about it, and they believe the same thing, that God is preparing us for a revival. That God is about to do a work across this country like we've never seen. Why? Because He's taken away everything that we've been worshiping. He's taken everything that we've forsaken Him for, and He's saying, listen, now you got nothing. You have one choice during this time. It's either to turn to God or turn away from Him. You can run to Him or you can forsake Him. Hebrews chapter 13 and verse number 5 says, let your conversation be without covetousness. Be content with such things as ye have, for he hath said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee.
That's right.
God's never once turned his back on me.
Amen.
Brother Phil, I deserve for God to turn his back on me. The things that I've done in my life, I deserve for God just to look at me and say, I'm done with you. And just walk away. But instead, he's loved me anyhow.
Amen.
He's never turned his back on me. How can I turn my back on him?
That's right.
I've got to stand and do my best. Does that mean I'm going to be perfect? No. And if you're sitting here this morning and you think you're perfect, I'll get a mirror. There, as a matter of fact, you can go out this door right here. There's a men's bathroom and a ladies' bathroom. Both have mirrors. You ain't perfect.
That's right.
I remember one time a preacher, he said, folks, this morning, he said, I'm going to ask you some questions. He said, I'm going to transition to my message. He says, how many of you have read Hebrews chapter 20, verses 15 to 19? Buddy hands went up all over the place. He says, amen. Well, this morning I'd like to transition to my message on the lying tongue and abomination to the Lord. Everybody wanted to please the pastor. They ain't no Hebrews chapter 20. They was real quick to, you can get up there. How many of you have read Ezekiel 74, chapter 3, verse 7 to 12? And you'd have people,
Yeah.
raise your hand, we don't look good. But that's just it. You're not fooling God. I can't fool God. I can fool you. You know why? Because we're flesh. We're easy to be fooled. That's why people like magic tricks. Brother Vic, take his thumb off. He showed me the other day. So take it plumb off and put it back on. It's amazing.
It's really fun.
Oh no, it's really gone. But that's just it. We're so enamored by things. We're so easily fooled. We're so easily deceived. That's why we've got to have a close walk with God. Because the devil knows how easily to trick us. He knows how easy to get us so in despair that we just turn our back on God and say, I don't need him. I'll be all right by myself.
Come on.
We must not forsake him. Number 2, we must not forget him. See, that's the same thing, ain't it? No. Because forgetting is what leads to forsaking.
That's right.
See, when I forsake him, I completely turn my back on him, but it's when I start forgetting him that leads to me forsaking him. And here, if you look down in verse number 17 and 18, it says, for the Lord our God, now listen, they begin to relay what God's done for them. For the Lord our God, he it is that brought us up out of our fathers out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, and which did those great signs in our sight, and preserved us in all the way wherein we went, and among all the people through whom we passed. I mean, they begin to relate all the goodness of God. It goes on, verse 18, and the Lord drave out from before us all the people, even the Amorites, which dwelt in the land. Therefore we also serve the Lord, for he is our God. Well, they begin to recite back to Joshua, as if Joshua didn't know. He was the one listening to him. He was Moses' right-hand man. He had heard him whine the whole way. Hey, they get to the Red Sea, and all of a sudden they forget God, didn't they?
Yeah.
You brought us out here in the wilderness to die. They were ready to go back to Egypt. They were even talking about how good they had it in Egypt. How in the world have you been beat and in bondage for 400 years of your history, and then you turn around and won't go back after they let you out? How many of you have ever went to a restaurant and it was just nasty? Yeah. And you're just thinking, I ain't going back. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care what kind of rating the restaurant has. I don't care if it's supposed to be the finest dining there is. If I go to take a bite out of my hamburger and there's a finger in it, I ain't going back. It just ain't going to happen. Oh, it's under new ownership. I don't care. I ain't going back. That ends it for me. But that's just it. So many times we look the same way to God. We look so unappetizing. We look like slop that got dug up off the floor and put on a plate, and we'll present ourselves to God like we're somebody.
Yeah.
We forget all about what he's done. We forget all about how he's changed us. Listen, if you're saved, God's done something in you that you couldn't do for yourself. He's molded you and cleaned you up. You couldn't do that. I couldn't pull myself out of the muck and mire of sin, but God did.
Amen.
He didn't forget me. He didn't look at me and say, okay, I'm going to save you. Now once you're saved, see you later.
No.
But God doesn't forget us like that. We'll do it to him. Oh, I'm saved now. I'm on my way to heaven. See you later. You'll see people get saved and within 2 or 3 weeks they're not in church anymore.
Right.
What happened? They forgot what God did for them.
Amen.
Hey, God didn't do anything for them. But you know, there's a lot of us, we forget how good God's been to us. We'll start looking around and say, well, preacher, you just don't know. You just don't know what's happened in my life. You don't know what's going on. You know, I've been furloughed from a job or my business. Hey, listen, I've seen several businesses, big businesses, that have just completely shut down. Because they're done. They're closed their doors forever. These people ain't furloughed no more. They're not going to have a job. And it'd be real easy in that circumstance to sit there and say, okay, God, you must not care about me. And yet, He still lets you breathe. He still lets you get out of bed every morning. But I don't have it. Don't worry about that. You let tomorrow worry about tomorrow. You give to God today what He deserves, and that's your praise and adoration. And you'll find that when we are right with God and we're seeking Him and trying to have a relationship and we're choosing to remember all that He's done, choosing to recall all that He's done, not forgetting who He is and what He's done in our life, it'll help.
Amen.
Psalm 119 verse 16 says, I will delight myself in thy statutes. I will not forget thy word. You want me to tell you how you start forgetting God and how good He's been? You forget His word.
Right.
Listen, they had seen miracles. They had seen things you and I have never seen. Can you imagine a pillar of fire guiding you along? Then a pillar of cloud guiding you along? Can you imagine getting to the Red Sea? Moses says, behold, the salvation of the Lord holds His rod out, the water parts. And you walk across not on mud, but on dry ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, when you got a sea, how many of you understand that when water's in one place real long, the ground below it gets soft? And yet, in an instant, the water parts, and that ground that should be soaked, should be wet for miles deep, is dry. How did that happen? God.
Amen.
Every time they turned around, God was doing something for them. They get up there, oh no, there's enemies. They want to kill us. God said, hang on a second. Wipes them off the map. Every time they turned around, God was doing something for them. And yet, it was like the next day, they just completely forgot what God did for them. They just completely forgot what God did for them. Oh, God's good today. He's good on Sunday. Tomorrow, we'll forget all about who He is. Why? Because trials and circumstances, we allow them to overpower what God's done. You want me to tell you a good way not to forget what God's done for you? On a daily basis. Even if you have to tell yourself, remind yourself of what God's done in your life. Hey, you know what? God, you saved me. God, you give me food today.
Yeah.
Lord, you give me a place to lay my head. Listen, Jesus didn't even have that.
That's right.
He didn't have a place to lay His own head. He was talking about animals. Foxes having dens and holes and birds having nests. He says, son, man, have not a place to lay his head.
Right.
He was just wandering around. We've got a place to sleep and food to eat, air to breathe, a nice church house to meet in. The ability to transmit this up to radios for those so they can hear it. Facebook so that people can watch it. God has given us so much more than we ever deserve.
Amen.
And how quickly we'll forget from day to day what He's done in our life. That's what the Israelites did. That's why you see a constant yo-yo all throughout Scripture. They're doing good one day, and it seems a couple of days later, they're back in the hole again, and God's fussing at them. God said to somebody to tell them, hey, listen, repent, or I'm going to send judgment. Oh, we're sorry. We love you, Jesus, and we love you, God, and all of a sudden they're right again. And they're doing good for a while, and then all of a sudden, whoop, roller coaster again, back down the dip. Because you know what? That's how we know God's merciful, and that God doesn't forsake us or forget us. You know the only thing that God chooses not to remember, it doesn't say He forgets. He chooses not to remember our sin. Do you know that even if today I failed God miserably, if I went to God and sought forgiveness, He'd forgive me and choose not to remember it? Wow. That's something.
It is.
What about us? How am I? How am I about forgetting, moving forward and doing? I'm not. Listen, so many times I forget how good God's been to me and Brother Phil. I'm not good to other people.
Yeah.
I'll get upset with you over something silly. I do that a lot. You ask my wife. I'll get upset over something silly. She's like, why are you upset about that? I don't know. I won't be mad. But you know what I have to be careful of? In my own personal, she's not going to forget who I am. Well, I mean, if she falls and hits her head, she's not going to forget who I am. And so if I mistreat her today, preacher, guess what? I bet she remembers it tomorrow. I bet she'll remember it. And you know what? She might decide tomorrow if I mistreat her today, but you know what? I don't want to fix you when I was talking that fixing you. I was gonna make you a meal you really like, but I don't think I want to do that. All of a sudden, I'm suffering
Yeah.
because I forgot how to treat her. I forgot how to love her.
Yes, sir.
Many of us are wondering why we suffer and struggle. It's because we've forgotten how to love God.
Amen.
We've forgotten how to just be in His presence. Just sit there and say, God, I'm nothing. Hey, guess what? Ain't none of us arrived.
Yes, sir.
Ain't none of us on the same plane with Jesus. But I'm glad to say the ground's level at the foot of the cross.
Amen.
It's all level down there.
Amen.
God doesn't look at any of you, say, I love Him more than I love Him. He loves us all.
Amen.
And He's willing to love us in spite of us. Praise God for that.
Yes.
Yes.
Psalm 106, verses 13 and 14. Listen, this talks about the children of Israel. Says, they soon forgot His works. They waited not for His counsel, but lusted exceedingly in the wilderness and tempted God in the desert. That's talking about this very group that said in verse number 16, God forbid that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods. Here in the book of Psalms, he's talking about they soon forgot His works. So quickly they forgot what God has done for them. May you and I as Christians not forget what God has done for us.
Yes.
What He's done on our behalf. Number one, we must not forget. We must not forsake Him. Number two, we must not forget Him. But here's a must. Here's something we've got to do. Number three, we must have faith in Him.
Amen.
Listen, I'm so thankful. Oh, I'm so thankful that my faith is not in my bank account. Because I would not have much faith. I'm so grateful that my faith is not in a building. My faith is not even, hey, listen, I love the Bible, but my faith's not in the Bible. My faith's in Jesus.
Amen.
And if I'll recognize that on a regular basis, hey, when I feel like I'm out of control, when I feel like I'm so easily forgetting who God is and what He's done for me, and I don't want to forsake Him, I don't want to get away from a relationship with Him, hey, just go back to the day and say, you know what, I remember. I remember when God saved my soul. Hey, you may not be able to say, here's the exact date, time, here's the square. But it's knowing in your heart that you've asked Him to save you. It's remembering in your heart. You know what? I remember the change He made right here in my heart.
Amen.
That's why I like that old song. You ask me how I know He lives? What's the next line? He lives what? That's how I know that Jesus is alive and well, because He's right here. But there's a lot of times where it can feel like He's not here, even though I know I'm saved. There's a lot of times it can feel like Jesus is a million miles away. Can I tell you what, friend? That's not His fault. It's mine. It's because we, again, go back to that forgetting who He is and what He's done. We've got to learn to rest in Him and trust in Him. Trust in Him even when it doesn't seem clear. Trust in Him even when hey, you ever had somebody that knew a trail? I was going with a guy, we was hanging out together, and he said, let's go ride four-wheelers. All right. Well, it was dark. Well, the four-wheeler he put me on didn't have no lights. Oh, how convenient. Oh, but his did. Don't you worry about that. He had lights, but I didn't have no lights. I said, man, we're going to ride in the dark trails through the woods, and I ain't got no lights. He said, just follow me. No, I don't think so. He said, trust me. No, I don't think so. I really don't. I said, what if you take off and look? I said, I'll be in the middle of the woods, won't know where I'm at. Won't know how to get back. He said, just trust me. All right. We went out, and guess what? We made it back. But I had to trust Him because He was the only one who could see me. That scared me to death because I'm going through there. I'd be watching him trying to see a silhouette, see if it ducked. See if there's a tree branch, see if he's ducking down. For all I knew, he ducked down and was waiting for me to hit it and going to laugh at me. But here I am trying to follow him. He's flying. Brother Phil, I was just praying the whole time, oh, Lord Jesus, don't. Because we're just flying through the woods in the dark. I can't see nothing. I'm like, but if he ducks for a branch, I won't see it. I'm just going to die. It'll take my head off. Or I'll ruin a perfectly good tree one. But we finally get back, and he's like, yeah, fun. I said, absolutely not. I said, that wasn't fun at all. He said, why? I said, I couldn't see nothing. He said, yeah, but you did fine. I said, yeah, but it was scary. It scared me. I said, because I couldn't see. I couldn't see if you were ducking, if there was branch. I didn't know. I said, it scared me. Fear will cause your faith to start doing that.
Yeah.
You ever seen somebody real scared? And they'll shake because they're so scared? It's that same thing when it comes to faith. Our fear will cause our faith to start to shake, start to falter. We start to worry. We're trying to hide it. You know, if you handshake, you know, I'm afraid. People can usually tell when you're afraid, especially if you get to know people. You can tell when they're scared. See, different people have two different responses to fear. Fight or flight. You ain't gonna stand it. But see, that's what they tell you, fight or flight. They forget the third response to fear. Freeze. I've seen some people, it wasn't fight, flight, it was freeze. I mean, they just couldn't move. They're just, help me, you know. They were so scared they didn't even know what to do. They didn't, do I run? Do I try to? Well, I don't know. They were scared. But if I learn to rest in Jesus, I'm serving somebody who can take care of any problem I got.
Amen.
I'm serving somebody who can fight any battle I ever face. I don't have to live in fear. That's why God specifically tells us, God hath not given us the spirit of fear. That's not, fear is not of God. Now listen, there's a big difference between being afraid and having the fear of God.
That's right.
The fear of God has the idea of a reverential awe, a respect.
Amen.
That we ought to look at Him and have such admiration and respect, because if He wanted to, without even saying a word, He could wipe us all off the face of the earth. He could destroy the universe if He wanted to. But Lamentation says, of the Lord's mercies we're not consumed. They are new every morning.
Yes.
Great is thy faithfulness.
Yes.
God is faithful to me. I ought to be faithful to Him. Hebrews 11:6 says, but without faith, what? It is impossible to please Him. For he that cometh to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. It's impossible for me to please God if I don't trust Him. You're not going to try to please somebody you don't trust. Have you ever been around somebody else's dog? Some people's dogs, they're weary. Leery. They'll walk up to you and you'll say, well, hey, back up. They're watching you. And what's it? Well, come on, and maybe, Brother Phil, maybe you can get you a piece of jerky. Listen, I'm going to tell you how it works at my house. You hear them dogs hear a plastic piece of something rattle, they can be dead asleep and they're standing there. What you got? Nothing for you. Oh, come on. Drop the piece. Drop the piece and see if you can get it before I do. That's just how they are. I mean, they hear it rattle and they think it's for them. You go to get something, especially anything that opens like a treat bag, but it's, what's that? I want something. But there's so oftentimes we act just like him. Listen, there's some dogs you can take. You get a treat, buddy. I'm your best friend. I ain't never met you before. If you're going to give me something to eat, I'm your buddy. Don't want dogs are like that. You're going to feed me, I'm your friend. I'll do that. But then you got some dogs, it don't matter if you had a T-bone steak and you're waving in front of them, they'll still, you'll get a little bit closer, but they'll back up. Brother Phil, what happens if you back a scared dog in a corner? It don't matter usually how small that dog is. They'll bite the fool out of you. You back them into a corner, it don't matter what you got. They ain't worried about that steak. They're just worried about getting away from you. They'll bite. You know, there's a lot of times in our life that God back us in a corner. He said, never. We're sitting here showing him our teeth. Hey, listen, if I'm walking over to this dog with a T-bone steak, I ain't looking to hit him. I'm trying to give him something that he'll probably like if he'd give me a chance. But you know what we do? We get back in the corner and all of a sudden I ain't doing that. Get away from me. Get away from me. I don't care what you got. And we treat God like He's going to beat us. Now listen, I'm going to tell you one thing. God whips me because I deserve it. There's a lot of times He'll put me in a corner to try to show me I love you. I've got something to give you. If you'll trust me.
Amen.
If you'll rest in the fact I don't want to hurt you. You see these dog rescuers? They'll try to go get a dog, but that dog's scared to death. It's been out there by itself, and they're trying to be real gentle with it. Once that dog will snap out. But you'll never see them raise up and try to hit that dog. No, they'll sit there and they'll just keep working with it. I've watched them just sit next to him for a while. And just sit there, Brother Phil, just kind of chuck little pieces of something to him. And they'll try it again. They'll reach that hand over there. And then after a little while, guess what? That dog will start letting it tell. Why? Because they're earning the trust. Can I tell you something? Jesus earned my trust way down the cross. I can trust Him. He don't have to prove Himself to me. I can trust Him. I can rest in the fact that He is what He says He is.
Sir.
Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, you know these verses. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths. When I can't see what God's doing, when I don't understand how things are working, when I'm afraid, when I'm fearful, when I feel I've been backed into a corner, I don't have to try to bite the hand that's trying to help me.
Right.
I can trust Him. I can rest in the fact that He knows what's best for me. See, that's the thing that that old dog don't know. He don't know that you got his best interests at heart. He don't know that that person trying to rescue him is trying to rescue him, is trying to help him. Maybe all he knows is the last person that had him and they beat him all the time. All he knows is they used to kick him all the time, and now when he sees people, he's afraid. He don't want to be around people because last time I was around people, they hurt me. Hey, listen, don't let your experience with other people destroy your relationship.
Amen. That's right.
Listen, there's been times in my life where I've allowed my attitude towards other people. Brother Phil, it hurt me. It hurt me bad. It ruined my relationship with God. Because I get around people and I get close to them. Church people now. And I think, man, they're my friend. They want what's good for me. You ask my wife. You think they love you and they want what's best for you? And Brother Vic, when they study you, they was going,
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Amen.
why would God let that happen? There's only one reason I know. It's to teach me to trust Him more.
Amen.
You mean God allowed people to betray you and treat you like that?
Yeah.
Why? Because when I start realizing that's not y'all I'm supposed to run to, it's Him.
Amen.
Listen, I'm not trusting in y'all for my salvation.
No.
Y'all better be glad you ain't trusting in me for your salvation.
Amen.
Listen, if we were God, what none of us going to heaven?
Yes, sir.
We'd all be dead probably.
Yes,
You look like a shootout of the OK Corral. But when I learned to rest in Him, verse 18, and the Lord drave out from before us all the people, even the Amorites which dwelt in the land. Therefore, we will also serve the Lord. What does it say? For He is our God.
Amen. Yes.
Listen, this morning He's either your God or He ain't.
That's right.
It ain't, well, He's one of them. He is either your God or He ain't.
Yes, sir.
So that's not proper English. You'll get it wrong. He's either your God or He's not.
That's right.
You either serve Him or you don't.
Yeah.
It's not just one foot in, one foot out.
That's
Let me tell you something. Years ago, there was a guy who was doing a stunt. And his stunt, I'm not going to name his name, you'll probably know who it is when I tell you what he did. But his stunt was he was going to take two trucks, go down the road side by side, and he was going to do a full split. One foot on each of them trucks as that drove down the road. Now, first of all, why do you want to do a split at all? That makes no sense to me, but okay. But he was going to have two trucks. Do you know all the details that go into that? That's not something you just say, hey man, let's try this. Now, well, if you're from my neck of the woods, you probably would. But, you know, hey man, let's try that. No, you plan it. Why? You got to have two trucks that are identical, two guys that know how to drive and can keep them things right together. Why? You got one foot on this one and one foot on this one, and he takes off. I mean, you get the picture. You're either going to lose a leg or lose a life, one. You got to have two guys that are driving just right. You got to have, the right shoes on. You got to prep for that. It's not something you just do. You got to have all the details straight. But you know the biggest thing he had to have? Biggest thing that you had to have in that whole situation, you have the right vehicles, the right drivers, all the skill in the world. But you got to trust. He's got to trust in the fact that he knows what he's doing. He's got to trust that these guys driving know what they're doing. He's got to trust that those trucks are not going to blow up all of a sudden. I mean, imagine that going down the road, one of them quits running. He had to trust. That was the key to everything. The key in your life to everything is trust.
Amen.
If I can't learn to trust God and rest in Him,
Amen.
I'm going to be stuck. I'm going to be like a one-armed man trying to do a rowboat. That's what a lot of us look like in life. Just round and round we go. Where we stop, nobody, I feel sick. Sit still. Quit trying to figure out where you're going and sit still. Look up and say, God, I can't row this boat.
Right.
I don't even know where I'm going. I'm so dizzy now, I don't know which end's up. But I can trust you.
Amen.
And I can rest in you.
Amen.
They made a statement. Said, He is our God. Is He your God this morning? Do you really trust Him? Hey, that's what Joshua was saying all the way back in verse 15. Choose you this day whom you will serve. Here's what he's saying. The choice is yours. You can trust God and rest in Him and have faith in Him, or not. It's your choice. I wish that I had the ability as a preacher, you know, like a miracle touch, Brother Phil. I could shake your hand and you'd be saved. Well, that'd be awesome. I'd just be shaking people's hands. Hey, man, how you doing? Aha, you're saved. That's not how it works. I wish that I could pray real hard and it would make people get saved. You know that God Himself doesn't make people get saved.
Right.
He gave us something called free will.
Right. Yeah.
Now, does God know who's going to be saved? Absolutely. He knows that. He's all knowing. But He gave a way for all to be saved.
Amen.
He gave a way for all of us to have access to heaven.
Yes.
And it's our choice to accept it, to trust it, or to reject it. I'll close with this. How many of you have that one family member that when they say the words, do you trust me? You go, nope. Sure don't. Maybe they come to you and they say, hey, close your eyes and open your hands. Or close your eyes and open your mouth. Do you trust me? Nope. Sure don't. You don't know what's about to happen. You know, maybe they come to you with a box. I remember one time my dad's come to me and he's got a box. And I'll tell you, see if I can remember the story right. He had a box and I don't think there was anything in it. But Dad is famous, and you can ask my wife, she's watched him do it. Dad is famous for scaring people. He loves it. He thinks it's hilarious to scare my mother. Now, she don't think it's funny, but he does. And so do we. He's carrying his box around, you know, and he'll just act like there's something in it, you know, try to scare you. Well, he hears Mom pull up. He goes, yeah. So when you come in the back door of Mom and Dad's house, there's just enough room to get behind the door when it opens. I just seen him do this. He gets behind that door. She just swings the door open. He lets her get just by the door. She don't even think to look. As many times as he's done it. I've been alive for almost 34 years. He's been doing it since I can remember. She never, ever walks in that door and goes, she just walks. She ain't thinking of it. He came out of there and scared her so bad she threw stuff everywhere. She wasn't even carrying nothing. Scared her to death. She's like, why do you do that? Stop scaring me. He'd sit there, and my sisters, I got 3 sisters. He'd get behind the door frame. They'd come walk through. They'd go to cry. It was still funny. He'd scare me. He'd wait till I was not paying attention or something and walk up behind me and gooch me. Woo! We were talking about that this morning. Scare you half to death. But you know, I remember once had my Heavenly Father sneak up behind me. Boom! Some of the people out in the car just woke up. Sorry, He never did that. He's always come alongside me, and I've seen him coming. You know the only way you can see somebody coming is if you're looking.
Yes, sir.
See, when she walked in the door, she wasn't looking for him. She had no idea he was back there. When he was sneaking up behind me, I had no idea he was back there. My sisters had no idea he was hiding. He thought it was hilarious. Didn't matter how many times I cried. I mean, my sisters cried. But the thing is God's never done that.
Yeah.
God ever manages to sneak up on you because you weren't looking for him. It's not to scare you. The reason God wants closeness to us is because he wants fellowship. He wants to be our God.
Right.
You can choose today to say, I heard this before, in one ear and out the other. Or today you can let it get in that ear, get in that head, and let it reside in your heart. You say, God, I want to have a better relationship. Lord, I want to choose daily your number one, your priority. I want to serve you. It's not about me. It's not about what I want. It's all about Jesus. Friend, the choice is yours.
Yeah. Amen.
Father, we come to you this morning. God, I pray, Lord, that you'd help us. Lord, you strengthen us. Father, would you use us to be an example to others? God, I'm so thankful that you love us. Lord, that you're there for us when we are fearful, when we are afraid. God, you even care about us when we walked away. Father, I'm thankful that you restore us to fellowship. Lord, I'm thankful that you've never forsaken me. God, even when I've gotten so far from you, I deserve it. Lord, you love me anyway. Father, may we never forget who you are and what you've done for us. May we never lose sight of the fact that we can trust in you. We can rest in the fact that you're always going to take care of us. Lord, you told your disciples when you left, you were with them always. God, I'm thankful for that promise. Lord, for us as your children, that you're always with us. Father, would you help us to make that choice on a regular basis? To serve you, to please you with our lives. Lord, that others might be brought to you, might know the joy of salvation. Father, I pray you continue to lead, guide, and direct us. Keep us safe as we go our separate ways here in a moment. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. You're sleeping. What number is that? I want all of you that's in here, I know some of you outside, you may have a bulletin. And if you do, that bulletin's got the words on it there, right on the front page, if you got a bulletin. And I want us just to sing a verse of that. This was Brother Rusty's favorite hymn. Love this hymn. And I want us to sing just a verse of this. And I think we ought to sing verse number 4. But I believe that's what Brother Rusty's experiencing this morning. But let's sing verse number 4 together, How Great Thou Art.
When Christ shall come, his crown of acclamation, and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart. Then I shall bow in humble adoration, and there proclaim, my God, how great thou art.
Sing it out.
Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
Amen. Aren't you thankful for a great God?
Yes, yes.
Folks, can I encourage you to do something this week? Call somebody and let them know you're thinking about them. Send them a text. Send them a letter even. I think they still send mail, don't they? Send an email, whatever. Just contact somebody. Let them know, hey, praying for you, love you. Let them know, hey, say, I might go to the grocery store Thursday. You want me to get you something? Whatever. Just try to be an encouragement to each other during this time.
Amen.
And be understanding. Not everybody feels the way you do, and that's all right. We're entitled to our opinions. And so let's just love each other. Let's encourage each other. And Lord willing, we're going to be right back in here Sunday. And then hopefully, I think by next Wednesday, we're going to come back in here as well. And so next Sunday, we're going to do the same thing. And so you be prepared for that. And Lord willing, I'll be putting the message out tonight on Facebook. For those of you that don't have Facebook, we do upload those messages to YouTube as well. So if you have access to the internet, you can watch any of our services that we have. And so Lord willing, we'll be putting one on for this evening's service. And so be looking for that. And then hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we're going to get back to normal. Whatever that is. And looking forward to that. But pray for one another. Be safe. And let's just keep looking up. Redemption's drawing nigh. Goodbye. God bless. Oh, yes, don't forget, if you do have offering tithes, anything like that, the trash can is the same place where it's been, so as you exit the parking lot. And then also, right underneath the clock here, at the back of the sanctuary, there's a book that if you'd like to sign in honor of Brother Rusty, Miss Carol's got a book back there, if you would sign that on your way out.